Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 7th day of October 2019. We'll get the cards out here. Well, I hope everyone had a good weekend. I've been finishing up my canning. I had to get a new canner because my other one warped. I don't know. I guess I kept the temperature up too high or something. Anyhow, I had to get a new canner, and so I had to wait until Saturday for it to come, but I finished my chili that I was canning. Oh, that turned out really good too. But we've been running around gathering this and that and moving some things into the greenhouse and some stuff into the house, and hopefully for the winter, but even out in that greenhouse, things are going to freeze if we don't keep heat on, and I'm probably not going to do that. So at some point, but I have one loofah growing. I would just like for it to finish out. It's not that big, although it's getting bigger. So I'm going to keep the heat on for a little while. But I guess we're going to have a night that's going to be like 20, and maybe that's tonight. I don't know. So it may not matter. So anyhow, it is what it is. We're at about 3,000 feet above sea level, so, gardening on the high desert is not for the faint of heart. It does end at some point, so this is the moment we all go through here, those of us that try to do this here. But we've lived here since 1981, so I think we've pretty well figured out how to negotiate. But even with that, you can't always foresee everything. So anyhow, if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for coming by. Click subscribe. I'd love you to do that. I got to put up with my voice. I'm losing it here today, I think. I've got my lemon and honey tea, though, here. We're going to hopefully be able to keep my voice through this. So anyhow, we've got the moon in Aquarius in the 3rd house right now. Suggesting that we might be more comfortable with intellectual communication than emotion-based. Aquarians are eccentric, they're focused, they're kind of the sign that gets things done, really, but they have this interesting way of seeing the world, and I don't know, I think that sometimes they seem aloof, but maybe they're not so much really, not inside, but maybe that's how they present themselves. But sometimes I think they're more comfortable with an intellectual type of experience than one that maybe is emotion-based. Sometimes they don't know what to do with it. So anyhow, the Sun, Mars, and Vulcan are still in the 11th house, also in Libra. So harmonious relationships today allow for some transition with Vulcan's presence. But avoid imposing will on others. Anytime you've got Mars in Libra, sometimes Mars tries to control things, being a Mars energy, But you don't want to do that today. You want to try to, if they look to you for leadership, great. But if no one does, then I would avoid trying to suggest it. Oh, well, I have things popping up on my screen here. Let's close that out. I hate when that happens. You get software on your computer, and then when there's an upgrade, then they start putting stuff on your screen. I don't like that. Anyhow, I sound old, don't I? Well, I am. I'm going to be 62 next Sunday, so I am, But lest you think that I was not computer-oriented, when my boys homeschooled, our home was networked. Yes, it was. We didn't have Wi-Fi back then, but we eventually got it, but at that time we didn't have it. I think it might have been out, but we're hardwired throughout the house, and so everybody, was online and whatnot. But yeah, and then of course, hold on a second while I pick up a card I just dropped. It's the Lovers. Remember that one? The 6th card of the Major Arcana. Balance, polarity, within and without. But anyway, they both are in the tech field, so it's not that I'm anti-computers. I actually knew how to work them before they did, so I don't know. I just don't like little intrusions popping up on my screen when I didn't ask for it. So that's that. I'm just grumpy that way, I guess. It's the crone witch within who's just like, okay, I've just had enough of this now. Anyhow, well, let's see if there's anything else I can talk about astrologically. Venus and Libra in the 12th house, comfortable with the unknown. Maybe a little too much focus on the future, not really seeing what you got in front of you, appreciating the beauty in front of you. Again, I'm a Libran, so, you know, I have a tendency to be that way, not always focused on the present. Mercury's a Scorpio in the 12th house, so we want to definitely observe more than interact today, because, and also have some diplomacy, because interactions might be intense. So, you know, because Scorpio is an intense sign. I have a son, my youngest is a Scorpio, very intense. Gets ahead of himself sometimes because of it, I think, because of that focus, maybe. Loses sight sometimes of the bigger picture when you get that intense of a focus. My husband's a Sagittarian. He's like that, can lose sight of that, of the bigger picture. It's not that they're not capable of seeing the bigger picture. They can. They're very good at it. It's just that when they get their focus on, right, it's just they're focused on one thing, and it's intense, and they can do a great job, and they can get things done, and all of that. So it's a good thing. It's just sometimes they don't see the bigger picture when they're in that mode. That's all. So you might want to be real careful in your communications then today with people, that you just don't want to be, just like with Mars, you don't want to be too controlling. You also don't want to be, you know, too intense with people either. North Node in Cancer in the eighth house, it also is supporting that, asking us to learn some self-control and to focus on spiritual values and to overcome pride in our relationships with others. So again, you know, we're in the month of Libra, so, you know, we're talking about balance and harmony, and especially with respect to our interactions with others. And so these are just things that can kind of get in the way, you know, things we need to remember to make sure that that happens. So we have that wonderful experience this month. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with the cards, and then we'll move on to the Elder Futhark rune, and then we will end the reading by creating a geomancy rune. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay out the first three cards. I'm going to take them randomly, so I'll take the 13th card each time. I was born on the 13th, so I do that. It figures prominently in my life. So whenever I want to do something random with the cards or with a rune, I'll choose the 13th one. So anyhow, let's get going. We'll see how long my voice lasts today. Well, we have the Sun. It's the 19th card of the major arcana on this 7-day of balance, divinity, magic, finding the resting point, if you will. This card of new beginnings. Let's do another one. Twelve, 13. The Queen of Swords. A woman who doesn't take anything off of anybody. She cuts through illusion. Not really interested in a bunch of stuff and nonsense. Well, you know, Queen of Swords is my favorite card. It sort of describes my phase in life. So, being the air element, a card of Libra, if you will. Oh, well, we have the Emperor right next to the Queen. So we're going to stop there, and we'll decide at the end if we need to add a fourth card. But right now, let's just take a look at this. I'm going to leave these cards, excuse me, in this particular order for now. I like when we have. See if I can do this in a way that makes sense. No, it's got to be this way. Okay, that's the way it is. I have to do this backwards. It's hard. I can't do it very well. Anyway, so we have the Sun, we have the Queen of Swords. I'll pull back a little bit, and we have the Emperor. But we're going to look at the Emperor and the Queen in particular. Okay. get these down in the order I have them. Now, order is an interesting thing in tarot. I realize, when we put down a particular spread like Celtic Cross or past, present, future, whatever, whatever you're going to do, something that's predefined, then you tend to leave your cards in those places, but you really don't have to. If something about it, particularly if there's an interaction, if you've got some court cards or some, or you have some major cards that might interact with one another. Sometimes cards talk to each other, so you can move them around to make that happen if it feels like to you that's the appropriate thing to do. So, but today I think I'm going to leave these right here. I like the fact that the queen is essentially talking to the emperor, which may come may be a little important here. Tarot can be either about our personal lives. And in that regard, it can be, about the physical, manifestation of our lives, our work, our home, our environment, basically. Or it can mean the greater society in which we live. And lately, because of what's going on in our country and because it's impacting all of us so intensely, even those who say, oh, I'm not looking at any of it. Yes, you are. Just stop. Of course you are. You can't take your eyes off of it, just like everyone else. But the fact is that we as humans, we're part of this greater structure. And so to think that it's not going to affect our lives, it's going to. And so what we're seeing here again today, I think can apply either way. Either, let's look at it from a personal standpoint first though. Here we have something new is coming. We have, it's the one energy, 19 reduces to 1. 9 and 1 is 10, 1 and 0 is 1. So there's your 1. And that's really basically how you do numerology. When you're reducing a number down, that's all you're doing. You're adding the numbers together. And eventually you're going to come to 2 numbers, assuming it's not a single digit. You're going to come to 2 numbers, or you're going to start with 2 numbers. You're going to add them together. And then if that results in 2 numbers, you're going to add that together to you're going to come down to 1 number. That's how you reduce in numerology. It's very simple. But here we have the sun. It's a fire energy. So will, creativity, new manifestation. We see the sunflowers in the background on the rock wall. We see the sun rising above the rock wall there, taking up half of the card, basically. It's like, ta-da, I'm here. We have a nude child. Sort of, it basically is signaling rebirth on a white horse, the symbol of purity. There's movement with the fabric there, the pennant or the flag, whatever that is. It may just be a long flag. Well, I guess it is. Oh, there it is. You can see the staff up there, the top of it up there. So it's a long flag. Red denoting victory, or orange denoting victory. So this Monday then is a day of new beginnings. Maybe a new thought, new emotions, a new direction, but something new. Now, we have the Queen of Swords. Again, my favorite card in the whole world. The best one, I have to say, the very best rendition of this is in the Thoth Tarot, where Lady Frida Harris, it's Aleister Crowley's deck, but Lady Frida Harris was the painter, was the artist. And she did this woman, she's on her throne, right? She's nude from the top up. And so she's nude up top. She's leaning back on her throne, right, in the clouds. She's got her sword in one hand and a severed head in another. So there you have the Queen of Swords, okay? This is a woman who doesn't take crap off of anyone. She's about fairness and justice. She's about proper communication. She's about balanced relationships. You can see the sword reaches right up to spirit. She's reaching a hand out and offering justice. Down here we go. I have to go backwards again. You see the X that reminds me of the X in which is Gebo in the 7th rune of the Elder Futhark. So again, aligning with today's energy, balanced energy exchange with others. So again, this is about balance, balanced interactions, but in a position of authority here. She's here to decide. She's here to decide what is real and what isn't. And look what we have here. Well, I'll leave her down for now. The Emperor. Fourth card of the major arcana, authority, structure, foundation. Does he look you in the eye? Not really. Little bit off to the right, just a little bit, just a little askew. You know, sometimes it takes a magnifying glass to see this stuff. It almost looks like one eye's going one way and the other guy's going the other. It's like he's hoping nobody notices what's really going on in his head. At times he can be dynamic. At times he can be, you know, the wise counselor, the one that provides the impetus for this and that to happen. He provides the structure for justice and fairness and all of that. But most of the time he's in his own world, and it's about what his own version, his own ideas of life are supposed to be. It's his direction. It's not really about the greater good. You know, he follows the Empress, and he's supposed to try to put this manifestation into some kind of structure, but he's a little bit too willful to do it in a way that creates the greater aspect of life that's done in balance with others. And so we ended up with, instead of the loving Empress being our guide, we ended up with patriarchy, as evidenced by this guy. You see no blues, no greens on this card. You see nothing that softens the will. So it's a very pushy type of energy. Now, what do you think she's saying to him? I think that what she's saying to him is, you know what, dude? We have a new way forward here, and you're not the one in control. You're not going to be the one in control here. You don't know how to bring things to balance. You don't know how to have justice prevail. You don't know how to do any of those things. You're too willful. You're too in your own you're too much in your own place, right? But we have a new day upon us now. Enlightenment, illumination, right? The sun is illuminating. The sun is bringing clarity and vision, new awareness. And she's letting him know that she's not going to tolerate any more of his nonsense. Now, from a personal standpoint, maybe you're in a situation where you have maybe internally a struggle of will within, balancing reason with your will. You want to go do something, but maybe reason is telling you, maybe you shouldn't do that. In preservation of the new way forward, we've got some illumination here, some new awareness, some new clarity, and now that has to be more heavily weighted than what we want to do. Now, you've got two soul archetype cards here. You've got the Sun and you've got the Emperor. But just because they're soul archetype cards, what they're trying to do is that they're trying to remind us while in physical form that there's a higher purpose here involved in why you're here. And that you have to see through source vision. You have to do things that basically are more heavily weighted on the evolution of the species, basically, instead of the moment being all there is. Because when you live in the moment only, without an eye onto the future, then maybe you have not learned the lessons of the past. A good example is what's happening with, I guess that I don't know who is it the FDA or the ag people, whoever it is that governs, that is the agency in charge of making sure our slaughterhouses don't move too quickly, that the machinery doesn't move too quickly, that they actually look at what they're doing and make sure that the food supply isn't tainted. There was a time when these processing plants were doing things too quickly, and the law had to step in and say, look, That's not working because people are getting ill and they're dying, right? So there had to be some changes. Well, now they've been blown out of the water again. Those changes have all been taken away because that's what really the swamp draining is all about. It's about removing regulations that prevent corporations from making as much money as possible. Problem is when they do that, they do it in a way that destroys our environment and in turn us. So it's like bee killing pesticides. They're allowing them more again, and they're terrible. They also cause, I think, brain dysfunction in children. These kinds of things are causing such, or that might be the glyphosate. I'm not sure, but there was something I read related to the bee killing pesticides, and now they're back again. Again, we're not learning from the past, right? So the sun comes in and illuminates and says no, and the Queen of Swords comes in and says, well, no, you can't do that. And there's the authority. But will the emperor listen? So internally, what you could say is maybe there's a struggle within between reason and will that you've been experiencing, and you need to look at the facts. The sun is saying, look at the facts, figure out what the real truth is here, and make your decision about not just about what's good for you. I mean, that might be ultimately the decision that needs to be made, that it just needs to concern you. But maybe this is telling you what you're trying to do, what your will is wanting, might not be so good for the greater group around you. So for the family, or if this is a job we're talking about, maybe it's not going to be so good for where you work, the people that you work with, or the company itself. So internally, what we're talking about today then is allowing facts to come in to inform you so that maybe this struggle between will and reason is a little bit easier to manage. Now, if this is in fact an external type of a thing, and we're talking about what's going on in the country, then basically we've got some more things that have come out this weekend, some more truth, some more, but it isn't just details, okay? And again, this can also apply to whenever the sun is in a reading. It's there to enlighten us. It's there to show us the entire picture. And so it's not just, looking out and seeing, your living room that needs to be cleaned. It's understanding it within the greater context of why you need to do that, why it's better to keep a clean living room. That's really a silly example. And in terms of a country, if we go back to the what is it? It's the pork industry, isn't it, that they've done? And maybe it's all of it. I don't know. But what I've read is they're mentioning the pork industry. Now they're going to be allowed to shuffle this stuff on through a little more quickly. And the last time this happened, everyone got sick, right? But just as long as wealth is, increased and it doesn't matter the outcome. And that's the whole point about the sun. The sun comes in, and what it's saying is, look at the entire picture, not just what you're seeing, but understand the cause and effect nature of all of it. And so there you have right there, cause and effect. In a sense, you're looking at will, which is cause, and effect, which is reason. So the emperor is the cause, and the effect is the swords, the outcome. The damage to our judicial system, the damage to our constitution, the damage to our environment, the damage to the people, just the damage that's being caused by decisions that are being made. So you can understand on a personal level, if you're battling between intellect and will, then it's like, reason is saying, well, wait a minute. You want to go do this, but is that really, you want to take the next week off because you want to go, play. You've got Black Moon Lilith, in the fourth house right now. She's in Pisces in the fourth house. So it's kind of this push-pull between work and play, getting things done, and Lilith going, yeah, I think I want to go play a little bit. It's this pull between what you need to do versus what you want to do, and having the wisdom to know which should prevail. And in the case of again, the hog slaughterhouses and the packaging and all that kind of stuff, the last thing you want to do is go back to what happened before, learning nothing from the past, and increasing it so now nobody can eat pork anymore. See, I'll never buy pork now, ever. I like to make pulled pork. I like those, You know those boneless country ribs? I love those things. They're great. They're great on the grill. They're just great, you know. And now I'm afraid to buy any because I don't know how it's been managed. And is cooking it, you know, completely, is that going to be enough? I don't know. I don't know. And this is what we're faced with now. But you can see how on a bigger level, okay, on a countrywide level, right? How a policy like that can have such a negative impact, a profound impact. People can die, right? You get sick and you die, maybe. So the impact of, okay, the immediate sense is, well, we want the corporations to make a whole bunch of money. Well, okay, that's fine, but not at the expense of everyone else, not at the expense of health and safety. So again, you can see that, how it plays out on the bigger stage. But if this is something about a struggle you're having within today, trust me, the impact of the choice you make can be just as profound on your own life or the life of your family or your coworkers or your friends, whatever the impact's going to reach, right? Understand that the ripple in the pond is not just a little tiny wave. It can have a humongous impact. So anyhow, let's look at the rune and see if it's going to align with any of this today. And again, if this is societal, if this is countrywide, then, you know, I think that, what did I hear? That SDNY got 8 years of his tax returns. And they've already moved. They've already filed, I guess, to stop it. And, you know, here's the thing. If you have nothing to hide, why would you hide? And if you are hiding, then you got something to hide. It's pretty simple. Might as well just resign now. Get it over with. Well, we have Ansus. This is the fourth rune of the Elder Futhark, which if the emperor were spiritual enough, it would align with the emperor, but he's not. He's just not. It may align well, though, with the sun. Ansus is known as Odin's rune. Odin, of course, is the one of the gods of the past. Odin was an extraterrestrial visitor, just like all the other so-called gods of the past. It served their purpose, you know, and because they were technologically, I mean, they're flying around in spaceships, you know, craft in the sky, so they can do things, right? That average man at that time, you know, could not do. And, you know, part of it was to genetically manipulate our DNA, and you know, some of it was benevolent, some of it was not, you know, whatever. But Odin was one of the Norse, considered one of the Norse gods, and whether or not he was actually also everywhere else, I don't know. This could have been just a certain group that appeared up there. But it kind of looks like, you know, they took different names depending on where they were, and it was pretty much the same folks. But we don't know that for sure yet. But what we do know is that Odin was the individual that, the king, if you will, that hung upside down from the world tree, likely a yew or an ash possibly, and hung upside down from the world tree, sacrificed an eye to gain enlightenment, you know. And again, you know, that's why it's going to, you know, align with the sun, because we're talking about enlightenment. While he was there, of course, from the well of word below, the Norns of fate were there, and they gave him the runes. So the fourth rune of the Elder Futhark, Ansus, is known as Odin's rune, and so it's the mouthpiece of the gods, or spirit communication. So in other words, it's allowing higher self to come through. We see evidence of it in the Hanged Man. We see there where he's hanging upside down again, from either, you know, either a cross of some kind, or typically you don't see the top part of it, so it's not a cross per se, but sort of like a T-shaped apparatus, or it's from depending on the type of deck you're using, a more non-traditional one will actually show him hanging from a tree. The point is that you're aligning in source presence. It's about surrender. It's about allowing. It's about no longer resisting the experience here and just allowing truth to enfold you, truth from spirit to enfold you. And again, if we're starting upon a new path here, if enlightenment is, if this is really a card of new beginnings and not simply about enlightenment, if we're starting on a new path, then we have the Queen of Swords here who's giving us the message that this needs to be in alignment with Source Presence. We need to have justice and fair play and balance. We need to have that going forward, which we've not had of late. And if the Emperor doesn't like it, if the will within doesn't like it, too bad. There's something else greater here at stake than simply what this guy wants. And so we need to listen to the voice within, the spirit within, and drop resistance to the facts that are coming out, and give it a chance. Look at how they dovetail together. Look at how the facts support one another. Look at how it draws a picture that maybe you're not comfortable seeing, but you need to see nonetheless. But let's go ahead and we'll close out here. We're doing pretty well on time. We're at about 31 minutes, so let's go ahead and do our geomancy rune for the day and see what we have here. So we have 1 dot for fire, or air rather. We have 2 for fire, 2 for is that a Missio? Or is that Rubius? Oh, well, that's Rubius. Okay. Well, if you've never seen geomancy done before, go over to the blog Stepping Aside over at imsteppingaside.com. I do a monthly reading, and you can just scroll back and you can find it, the monthly geomancy reading for this month, and you can see how it's actually done. But basically, we're creating, in a geomancy chart, you create the first ones by throwing whatever you're using. I'm using 4 runes that are coded per element, because it goes in the order of fire, air, water, and earth. And so when you see this here, you're looking at fire, air, water, and earth. Those are the positions there. 2 dots indicate a passive influence or principle. 1 dot indicates an active principle. Or influence. And so here we're talking about Rubius. We're talking about active influence on the water level, or air level rather. And so when you think Rubius, you think Mars and Scorpio. So right there, you're talking about, maybe misuse of will in a way that might not be respectful of other people. And I think that that's what you're looking at here. The fundamental, I kind of use the geomancy. I'll back up a little. I use the geomancy rune as sort of either an outlier or something that's at the heart of this. And right now we're looking at a Mars and Scorpio situation where we've got a very huge lack of impulse control, particularly with the Emperor. And because, we now need a queen to come in and clean things up, the queen within needs to take command of the will if this is an inner type of an experience you're having today. And again, listen to what the inner voice says. Listen to what higher self tells you. That's your true north, basically. It isn't the ego. It isn't the will. I mean, here we have an issue of a difference between rationality and ego, of spirit and ego. And on a 7-day, that one that we're trying to let things come to a resting point and let the balance settle out, we do that with clarity. We don't do that by succumbing to the machinations or the delusion of somebody who's simply trying to keep his job. And he'll say anything to do it, right? If that's part of your inner struggle today, where you're really willing to do anything at this point, then you're in a bad place, because you're willing to step outside the bounds of reason and fairness and maybe even justice, maybe even something legal, in order to maintain or keep what you want or to get what you want. But again, we have another voice of spirit. So in a way, we have, with Ansu's being Odin's rune, and spirit communication, we're really looking, this is a tremendous reading of spirit today, of spiritual awakening and clarity and understanding. and choosing the right way, employing Tiwas and the God Tyr, the spiritual warrior within, and use that as your true north versus the ego or the will of the emperor. So, not allowing passion and deception, because that's inherent also in Rubeus. Rubeus is considered an evil influence, and if it's the first rune you throw and you create, you're to end the reading. It's so bad. I'm not particularly of that persuasion. That's the old geomancers, in the whenever 1200s, 1300s, and all of that. They there was just certain ones. Cauda Draconis was another. So was Carcer. And Cauda Draconis is about the tail of the dragon, and it's the South Node influence or past life influence. It's just considered evil. And Carcer is about imprisonment. So, it's just one of those things like, oh no, and we end the reading. Well, no, we aren't going to do that here. We're going to embrace what that energy is and just think of it from an energetic standpoint. And here, you've really got energy that's willful and getting away with something. And that's not something we can have, not with this presence of the Sun and the Queen of Swords. That's not going to happen. So in any event, again, if this is something that's happening inside you, then maybe this helps describe some of it. If there's a little discomfort, if you're having a little bit of conflict and struggle, this may be what it is. Consider it from this perspective and see if this resonates for you. But again, if it's something that we're all coping with, we're just going to sit back and watch, aren't we? And see what happens. But I guarantee you, if taxes are being awarded here to the SDNY, the Southern District of New York, well, I don't know. Or if it's not them, it might be New York itself. But if it's that, then this could start unraveling very quickly. So buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride. It won't be fun to watch. So anyhow, it's just unfortunately necessary. So in any event, thank you so much for coming by. I appreciate all of you so much. Again, click subscribe. I'd love you to do that and join our Tarot and Rune family and put your own interpretations down in the comments. Ask questions if you like. But most of all, just come back and visit with us. I'm here Monday through Thursday. I take the weekends off. Well, a 3-day weekend off anyway. And because I am a writer, so I do have to have time to write. So, and I got a couple of things going right now. So in any event, I do that, and then I've been getting my canning done and my herbs done and all of that. So I have a little bit more to do on the herb drying, and but I think all of my tincturing at least is done for the year. So yay! My new elderberry tincture is almost ready. I've been taking that. If those of you who don't want to do flu shots, I don't. I'm very nervous about them, so I do nettle tincture and elderberry tincture. And nettle helps relieve the stuffiness for allergies and respiratory conditions. And elderberry has been tested and shortens the flu. So, so it's not just an herbal old wives' tale. It actually does work. So that's what my husband and I do. So, if you're uncomfortable with flu shots, I don't know. Everyone's got to make their own mind up about that. But I think you got to do something to protect yourself. So maybe that's an answer for people. I don't know. Again, it's a personal decision. Maybe it's something you want to talk to your doctor with. Be prepared for them to go, oh no, don't do that. But you might talk to an herbalist as well. I'm an herbalist, but you might talk to someone actually that practices and get their opinion as well on it. So in any event, again, I appreciate you all for coming by. Click subscribe. I'd love you again to do that. And we will see you tomorrow. Be good to yourself. Be good to one another. And blessed be.